So honored to be joined today by Mr. Technical, the winner, Barry Horowitz. Barry, thank you for joining me today on Under the Ring Pro Wrestling Conversations.
Thanks, Bill. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very excited about this interview.
So, Barry, you made more wrestlers look good than any wardrobe or makeup department ever could. What was your approach or your skills that helped you achieve that? And how important was that to your success in pro wrestling?
Wow, that's a great question. Well, first of all, I fulfilled my dream in pro wrestling. Wanted to be a pro wrestler, and not everybody could be the main eventer or superstar. You got to have people like me. I mean, look, the New England Patriots lost, basketball people lose, the Olympics. It goes on, and it correlates with pro wrestling also. Sure, would I have loved to been up on the card and a superstar? Yes, but it's basically the politics of pro wrestling, and also take it or leave it. I could have left that, and I think I did very well for myself by inventing myself, reinventing myself, and staying relevant. So you could take it or leave it. I don't have an ego. If I had an ego and I worried about my win loss record, I tell many people, many wrestlers, just leave these big organizations and call up Dana White and ask for a tryout in UFC and see what happens in about 7 seconds after Brock Lesnar owns your face. And then you'll beg for a job back in the pro wrestling ranks.
Right. So with your cameo and impact recently, some of your interview and appearance requests lately, what do you think it is about Barry Horowitz that makes you still in such demand in 2023?
You know, Another good question, Phil. I think my realism, if you will, as far as taking care of myself, my health, my body, my mind, being relevant in the business is it. I like to keep it strong. This is what I do, and basically invented myself as far as Mr. Technical, the pat on the back, and I think the people like a good underdog story, and they like to see me at the meet and greets or seminars, and still looking right. I mean, you want to still be the same person, and I think they appreciate that, especially the new fans now. They um they appreciate somebody like me. They appreciate the wrestling business even more so because they know what's going on. The other ones still don't have a clue. Oh well. Sorry
You
about
can't,
that.
yeah, you can't really help them. You're,
Yeah.
you're the only you're the only person I can think of who has done the losing streak story with two different companies too
Hmm.
that people still remember really well.
Hmm.
Just to recap, Jack Hart, uh, which was what you were wrestling under in Florida, you had
Yep.
a losing streak story that led to you becoming Florida heavyweight champion
Hmm.
in 1985. And then, of course, I think the one that most people remember best is beating Skip, aka Chris Candido, in 1995 with the WWF. How cool is it creatively to take the fans on that ride in those kind of a story, in those kind of stories, I should say.
Oh, I just took it extremely 100% into my gimmick and into my style of wrestling, and it was great. It was great to be picked for that because I think it's been done in the past from other people, and it just wasn't done properly. You got to set your ego aside, check it in at the door before you get in that ring, and be committed and be accountable. I'm a big fan of all of that.
How did those two stories differ, and how were they similar?
Um, so they're similar because of the losing streak. Basically, the skip one was updated, so more of the deluxe version, and then the other one was more old school in Florida as Stretcher Jack Hart. So, yeah, yeah, basically it's the same trailer, different park, if you will.
And it's funny too. Talking to other wrestlers who have done those types of stories,
Hmm.
they're talking about like when they want it to go so well that they're actually begging out of winning matches if they see, like, if they're just winning a match that doesn't make any sense, like, hey, we're going to pay this off later. I don't want to win. you know don't have me randomly win on a WWE show when I can, when it can mean more somewhere else.
Sure, sure. Yeah.
And and the run that you ended up with, I'm kind of curious about I'm going to go back to the Florida one first because I'm not from that area and only read about it in the magazines at the time, really when it was happening.
Hmm.
Um, what was it like being in Florida Championship Wrestling in that era, and how did you kind of fit in and just if you had to sum up that experience?
Well, number one, I friggin' loved it. I mean, this is my childhood dream. I grew up on championship wrestling from Florida. Gordon Soley, the best announcer in professional wrestling. And here I am. I'm filming where they film, where the TVs and the towns all over Florida. It was a humbling experience, and I think my main thing I think was just I was a team player, did what I said, did what I was told, and also the Graham family liked me, and I liked them. They liked me from Florida, just like Steve Kern, B. Brian Blair, Hulk Hogan. So it's a little niche of a Florida type, if you will, clique to
Mhm.
a point. And I really didn't even care about that. I just cared about, hey, they're doing something with me. I'm in my home state and it's humbling and it's fun and it's getting over.
And out of the match with Skip, looking back at that, you ended up with a SummerSlam match out of that. You ended up with a Survivor Series match after that, and you ended up participating in the Royal Rumble for the first time out of that. Also, what was that run like for you to
That
have that?
run was incredible because I don't think they anticipated how it got over. And I mean, captain of my team at the Survivor Series, I mean, the Royal Rumble, in your house matches. I did dark matches at WrestleMania, Madison Square Garden, commercial for karate fighters with Hakushi.
Oh yeah,
Um, I mean, celebrity softball tournaments, um, multiple interviews, the Slammy Awards. I couldn't have. It was a hell of a run for 1 year, and I wish it could have progressed. But I'm grateful for what I got.
did it bother you at all that you had actually won matches in WWF before that, and then they sold it as
Yeah.
your first win?
Well, yeah, really. That kind of didn't make sense, but it's pro wrestling.
Yeah.
Um, it's you know, Stevie Wonder could see that. I mean, it's it's just you're right. You're totally right. But and you got your smart marks that will say that. Hey, I saw him win it in Providence or Boston Gardens, and stuff like that. So I think it's really in that world, it's irrelevant.
Yeah. It's not
It
relevant to the
really is.
story that you're telling, really.
Believe me, if Barry Horowitz wins or loses on Monday Night Raw, 2 weeks later, people don't even remember it,
Right.
except your hardcore historians.
I will give credit to my friend Gordy Tepper, who pointed out to me that he saw you defeat Jose Luis Rivera, I believe it was, maybe at Madison Square Garden. I'm trying to remember exactly where it was, but he sent me that. He's like, that wasn't his first win. I'm like, I know. um, Also, being in the WWF, you got there in '87, I believe it was. Kind of
I technically, I'm using that word,
technically,
technically speaking, but 81,
right.
I started for Vince Sr. when it was the WWWF.
So you had three pretty distinct stints in that company then.
Yes, yes. I was there for a year just doing TV. They would film at Allentown and Hamburg, Pennsylvania every 3 weeks. I was grateful. I mean, again, humbling experience, learning what to do. My foundation of my house, again, if you will, was the Malenkos,
Mhm.
uh, the father and the two sons, and also Carl Gotch helped build the house of Barry Horowitz. They built the foundation. As far as traveling and getting polished, that's being on the road with all the greats. Jimmy Valiant, Rufus R. Jones, Sonny Fargo, the Crockett Promotions, everybody in that locker room in Allentown, Mr. Fuji, Bob Orton Jr., Blackjack Mulligan. I can go on and on. Bob Backlund, Chief J. Strongbow. I mean, I learned, if you asked me probably any wrestler in this business from 80 to right now, a story, I could probably give it to you. And basically it's a two-way street on that. It would be positive, they help me, or something that learned what not to do. Like, I don't take trips with Roddy Piper. Nothing against him, but you learn I don't take trips with Roddy Piper. That's all.
And kept yourself out of trouble.
Yeah, exactly. I need to be on time, and yes, and amongst other things, yes.
So you had that initial run in the WWF, like I was going to say, out of Allentown and stuff like that. But then you go back there in '87. It's
Mm.
actually, the peak, pretty much the peak of the promotion. It's around the
Yeah,
time of
yeah.
WrestleMania 3. I'm thinking that for everyone up and down that card, it had to be an absolutely unbelievable place to be in that moment
Oh,
in time.
without a doubt. I mean, everybody and anybody was there. And I just finished up in the Memphis territory for Jerry Jarrett, one of my favorite promoters. Rest in peace, Jerry. Uh, Jeff has treated me well when I see on the meet and greets. I don't get to see him that often, but his career is booming again. Good for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, they treated me good. I was only there 7 months, and me and Chick Donovan were the Southern Tag Team Champions, and had a heck of a match in the Memphis Coliseum against Soul Train Jones and Rocky Johnson. And yeah, I guess they saw tapes of me doing promos, Jack Hart being the heel, and that's when I got a phone call to come back home, if you will.
And some of the guys you were working with then, I'm trying to think back. I know Tim Horner, you've mentioned a number of
Oh
times.
yeah,
Who were
shoot.
some of the other guys that you were up against regularly in that '87 kind of '88
Well,
range?
probably almost all my favorite people to wrestle. I mean, I'll wrestle anybody. I'll go with anything. I'm not a standstill wrestler. Uh, I try to be multifaceted. I could go out there with Undertaker and get him over in 4 minutes, and the next night I could go out there with Owen Hart and pull 13 on TV or a house show. So people like oh my God, Tim Horner, the whole Armstrong family, Tracy Smothers, Ben Jordan, Sam Houston, uh, Handsome Stranger, aka Marcus Bagwell, Brian Pillman, Tommy Wildfire Rich, Tom Zink. Um, the list goes on. I know I'm missing people and it's not on purpose, but
Yeah.
I mean, I've been around a while and I've wrestled a lot of people. And I've wrestled guys on indie cards that are phenomenal that should be on TV. But once again, the politics of wrestling, you know, you have a choice to take it or leave it or to better it or, you know, do your best. And that's how I look at myself.
You mentioned Boris Belenko and
Yeah.
Dean Joe Malenko before, and kind of that they built the foundation of your career. What was that relationship like, and kind of getting that off to a start, and just really what do you learn most from working with them?
Well, first of all, I'm probably being biased because I've seen guys getting broken in the business as of late, 2 or 3 months. I was there 18 months, 3 days a week in a mattress factory that was about 104 in the summer, which it is probably right now, and about 40 degrees in the winter. Now, to Floridians, that's cold. To you guys, it's not. But it was a major learning experience. I was taking bumps on judo mats at first for 6 months from Jody Malenko and Shelly, and of course Boris Malenko. And then we graduated to a mattress factory that had two rings, a 20-footer and a 16 or 18. And uh wow, just 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours. This is after a part-time job, training in the weight room. I just learned so much about in the ring mechanics, psychology to a point. Basically, like I said, the foundation was built. When I learned more about high spots and psychology and a plethora of other things that relate or correlate and relate to pro wrestling, that's getting polished. That's
Mhm.
going up and down the roads with Rick Steamboat and Jay Youngblood, Mark Youngblood, listening to them. Uh, when I was in the car with Johnny Weaver, or at the time, Roddy Piper, I would just listen, listen, listen. And guys like Greg Valentine and Bob Backlund, they were all nice to me and helped me a lot. So it was it's a big time experience. And of course, Carl Gotch would come down and talk to us and stuff. But it's amazing when I do a seminar, it's not all about just stepping through the ropes and grabbing a headlock, one tackle, get it again. It's not about that. It's about honing and learning your craft as far as being, like it says on the Madison Square Garden marquee, pro wrestling tonight. I emphasize wrestling, holds, moves, tapping out, submissions. I mean, you cover your guy, try to pin him. I was it was just I was learning everything of that. And like I said, once I got on the road, then you get polished with your high spots, your psychology. You put all of this together and you're looking pretty decent. Your promos are good. You got a good worker. I want to be a great worker. And that means you got to get everything. You got to check the box for everything as far as psychology goes, your look, your work. And a lot of guys, even some veterans don't know this. And I was taught this by a veteran. The secret is to having a great match, get the match over. That doesn't mean get it over in 2 minutes, shower, and you're off to the clubs. No, it doesn't mean that. It means if I'm out there with Owen Hart or Brady Boone, get Owen over, get Barry Horowitz over, get Earl Hebner over, the referee, and get the fans over. Then you got a complete story told. It's so simple. You have a story, your heel, your babyface. Let's wrestle. Let's try to submit each other. Let's try to pin each other. Let's get a little entertainment with the crowd and whatnot, not overkill. It's if it's done properly, it takes you from a good worker to a great worker.
It's done properly. It's art. It's beautiful.
Right, artistry at its finest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
because if you want
you,
to shoot, anybody could punch you in the face in
it's
the
not gonna
back
look
of
good.
Billy's restaurant on a Friday night. Whoop-de-doo.
Yeah.
But if you could make that punch look like Stan Hansen just ripped your head off with a clothesline, which he probably did, but uh, if you could make it look on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst, make it look like a 10, but make it feel like a 3, but it looks like a 10, you're an artist.
Yeah. And I always really enjoyed your wrestling in the ring too, just as for personal taste. So
I
I'll say
honed
that.
myself, Phil, as what I wanted to be. I took a little bit from different people. I was a huge fan of Mike Graham and Don Morocco and the Briscoes, that wrestling ability. So when I do a Northern Light suplex in Boston Gardens and you're at ringside, or I do a double underhook suplex or a Russian leg sweep or a 3/4 grapevine, I want front row to go, this guy isn't chopping meat. He's wrestling. And
Yeah.
I understand it and I'm getting off on it. I like it. This man is he's been taught by professional people. He is a professional wrestler. Not just punch, kick, shake the top ropes, yell at the people. That's weak. That's lazy.
And I believe the 3/4 Nelson was the finish of the match with Candido, if I remember,
Yes,
because
it
I
was.
remember
It
that
was
very
also
vividly.
it's also what won me a state championship at Dixie Hollins High School in the state of Florida, St. Petersburg.
Very nice. What weight class?
That was 185.
Very nice. Very nice.
Mhm.
So I was actually going to ask you if there was people that you based your work on. You went through a whole litany of people right
Oh
there.
yeah.
So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit.
I try not
Where-
to. I tried not to copy any of them.
yeah.
I got to make a. I forgot one person. I mean, there's a lot, but we don't want to leave out Bob Orton Jr.
Mhm.
Phenomenal,
And
phenomenal worker.
I've heard you
Phenomenal
mention Jack
worker.
Briscoe before too.
Oh, of course, Jack Briscoe and Jerry Briscoe and Mike Graham, and that there's so many great technicians.
Where did the pat on the back come from? I always loved the hand on the gear and thought that was always very creative.
Well, actually, I did that in an amateur match,
Really?
and I wasn't supposed to. I thought I was doing good. I had the guy outpointed, and I just did a kind of a half-ass pat on the back. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I got yelled at, and of course by my coach, and I wasn't. It's not professional. You're in the amateur ranks, so I had a long range goal, and I knew I will be a professional wrestler. I mean, I'm going to do this. So I stuck that in my back pocket and I saved it. And it came out and it worked.
I always loved the handprint on the back of the vest too. I thought that was always
Yeah,
a
thanks.
nice
Thank you.
touch.
It's just
Well,
something different.
yeah, it's made you stand out, made you
Yeah,
people
people
remember
love
you.
it, especially for a heel.
Last year we had Tony DeVito on the show, who I know pretty well. And I asked him at one point a question I've seen tons of other places before about, the Mount Rushmore of enhancement wrestlers. Who would you put on it? That kind of thing. And without any hesitation, his first words out of his mouth were Barry Horowitz. Is it
Uh,
nice to be remembered by fans for that?
oh yeah, without a doubt. The good part about me, and I'm not trying to put myself over because nobody else will, but me. But my career could have went either way. So let's just say I did get pushed to the degree of a Shawn Michaels or any of your top tier guys. It could have went that way, but at the same time, hey, we need a guy that get people over. For instance, if you got a guy that can't work, you really need me to make it look like he works. Okay. But on the other hand, if you got a guy like Bret Hart, which he can work, it just enhances his work because I'm going to compliment his work. So why you need a guy like me and you need a bunch of us like that. And it's just got to be. I mean, who knows? Some other guys that are in the top position right now, they could have been in my position. So I'm still grateful and I'm fulfilling my dream and I stand out. And that's the way it goes. Now, if people, fans, or even pro wrestlers are saying the opposite of that, well, they're delusional and they're a mark for themselves and they don't understand the pro wrestling business.
Right. I can't remember who Tony's four were. I remember you were the first one. I remember he was struggling for a fourth one, so he just said himself. And I said, "Well, there's no real rules to this anyway. There's not really going to be a Mount Rushmore, so you can name
Yeah,
yourself if you'd like
yeah.
to."
Well, we don't want to do that or anything that would make sense because then that wouldn't make sense to certain people. I'm being sarcastic.
Well,
We don't want to do that. It would make sense.
I remember where I saw you next was on ESPN with Global. That seemed like a very unique company with an interesting start and kind of an odd
Yeah,
ending too. What was the experience in that company
that
like
was
for you?
fun. I mean, I was living in Nashville at the time, Music City, USA. I love it there. It's my second home. And driving to Dallas and, stay overnight, train in the gym, do TVs, the Dallas Sportatorium, another iconic building. A lot of people don't know this, but that ring was bolted to the floor and
Wow.
harder than hell. That's why you didn't see, you're not going to see in that ring the high spots that you see in AEW. That was just pure concrete.
Wow.
So, I mean, I've taken some backdrops on there, and I've taken some hip tosses and slams, but loved working there. Loved the talent there. First time I met Buff Bagwell, the handsome stranger, and of course, God, Sam Houston was there, and Eddie Gilbert, and Del Wilkes, the Patriot, the Dark Patriot. I thought it was a pretty good TV, and the announcers were really, I think, Scott Hudson and Craig Morgan.
Craig
I may
Johnson. Yeah.
Oh, Greg John, yeah, great guys, great people. So yeah, they treated me really good there, and they gave me a push there. And you would think that the major office, the billion-dollar office, would see the winner there and the promos, but it still wasn't enough for him, I guess. You
That would
what?
that would have also been the first time I would have seen, well, several talents. I remember Harlem Heat. I saw for the first time there too, but also
Yes,
Lightning
yep,
Kid, who of course became 1, 2, 3 Kid and
yep,
X Pac, a fellow Malenko trainee, I think too,
yeah, yeah,
if I
yeah.
remember. Who was I know Joe Pedicino was involved with that. Was Bill Eadie involved
Yeah,
in
I
putting
I
that together
never got
too?
to really meet Phil. I never really got to meet the powers to be.
Interesting.
I don't think I met Joe one time, and I was told that Bill had a part of it, but I didn't see these people
That's
at TV.
That's why we had Bill Eadie on a couple of months ago, and I wanted to ask him about Global, and it slipped my mind when we were talking
Oh
about so many other
yeah,
things because
Bill
he's
Eadie's a great guy.
fun to talk to too. Fun,
Yeah,
fun,
he
fun,
is.
fun
He's
interview.
very
Absolutely,
smart. The business was friends with Malenko. Just he's had a hell of a career.
and had a lot of different personas that he
Sure,
really
yeah. Yes, he did.
got popular.
Mhm.
So we're going to move on to something we call the 3 count now. It's going to be three relatively quick questions and your answers.
Sure.
First question: did you ever have a conversation with Bret Hart about being the other Bret Hart?
Yes, I did. Uh, Basically, make a long story short, I was in Charlotte at TV when I first got there, and I think Michael Hayes was in charge. Hey, your name is Barry Hart. That's the name Malenko gave me. We got a Gary Hart. He's the heel manager. You're a baby face. We're gonna have to change that name. Now it doesn't matter, but back then it did. This was in '83, and we're gonna call you Bret Hart. Well, I don't know. There's another Bret Hart. I don't. I know of the Harts, but not to the degree of I know now. And okay, so yeah, so gave me that name. I went back to changed my name to Jack Hart in Florida and Memphis. And then, of course, when I got called, they wanted Vince wanted my name to be legit Barry Horowitz, the heel Jewish professional wrestler. And when I met Brett, he's pretty soft spoken and low key, and he didn't like it because he had to change his name, and a lot of things went. But he realized, I think he was ribbing me, but it was for real too. And he realized after a year that I'm a legit guy. My
Right.
work is similar to the Hart family, the way they were taught, Stu Hart, Owen Hart, and all the Harts in the world. Um, so it became a friendship, and I loved it. I mean, I've actually traveled with him on the road, split rooms with him. I stayed at his house in Calgary, and to this day, now that he's not on contract, he's older. Things go by. Uh, he he's always talking to me so politely and nice, and thanks for working with my brother Owen. And oh, I said it was a pleasure, and I'm sorry if he ribbed you too much. And I said, no, he didn't rib me that much. And it was verbal ribs. It was your brother in law, Davy Boy, you got to watch for.
Right.
Oh, anyway, yeah, I appreciate Brett. I've been hearing I hear at least once a month he's on a podcast or interview telling me to be in the Hall of Fame and knocking a so called wrestler for his demise and whatnot. And just yeah, so it's became really cool and really good, and I like it too, and we're very similar, and I loved working with him, and of course I loved working with Owen because I've worked with him literally thousands of times.
Yeah. I always love that story too. That they didn't want Barry Hart and Gary Hart to rhyme, so they changed the first name and not the last name.
Oh, I know. Yeah, yeah.
Makes no
Yeah, well,
sense.
who am I to question this, Phil? I'm 21 years old. I got a
Right.
contract through Vince McMahon Sr. for Crockett Promotions, probably the second biggest company in the world, and I've worked for both of them, and I'm just starting. I
Yeah.
was, I didn't get the big head. I was just flattered that they like me and they like my work, and I'm staying here.
The other one of those I always loved with the double names was I always loved that Tito Santana at one point was Richard Blood, which is actually Ricky Steamboat's real name somehow.
Sure.
That ended up being his name in wrestling for a brief time, and I have
Yeah,
no idea
yeah,
how that
yeah.
happened.
It's
But
kind of cool.
that's another one
We're
that I
from
always loved.
we're from the same hometown, St. Petersburg, Florida. Myself and Ricky.
Oh, very nice.
It's pretty
So,
cool.
second question: if you got to show someone three Barry Horowitz matches that kind of define you, what matches would you choose to show them and why?
Oh wow. Jeez. Well, of course, any kind of match with Owen is up there. Any house, preferably house show, because we got to pull some time, 12 to 15 minutes.
That must have been
And I would
fantastic.
say, what's that?
That must have been fantastic.
Oh, it was incredible. Night off, so to speak. Of course, Skip was a mirror of myself. Uh, we just like having fun and working hard and wrestling. I emphasize wrestling. Um, God, my third it's going to be hard because I've worked with so many guys. Of course, Brad Armstrong and Tom Zink and Tommy Wildfire Rich, and actually all Scott Armstrong, unbelievable. Steve, all of the Armstrongs, even the dad I worked with one time at an indie show. Uh, just uh, again, Reno Riggins, Ben Jordan, There's a slew of people, and I just knew if I saw my name on for TV or the house show on the bulletin board, I was going, "Oh my God, this is going to be great." Especially the names I mentioned, and especially Owen Hart and Skip.
Very good. Last question. If you could book yourself versus anyone, past or present, who you never faced, who would you pick?
Hands down, Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle.
Who would win?
Well, in my prime, I would, if I was calling the match, I would want to go a 30-minute match with Kurt Angle, and I would have him go over on me. Or you could do a 30-minute Broadway and then have a rematch, and then of course Kurt goes over with his Angle Slam. But I would just love to just trade and train wrestling and just we would just I think we would bounce off of each other literally for moves and holds. Of course, you got an Olympic gold medalist wrestling a guy that wrestled in high school and 1 year at FSU. So there's no comparison. But still, the fans don't care about that. We're not in the Olympics right now. We're doing a pro wrestling match, and yeah, I would have loved to. This is I'm talking when I say prime. My prime would be 30s and late 30s, and Kurt would be when his second or third year when he had the hair still, or even
Yeah.
not. I would love to. That would be so cool.
Outside of the three kind of questions, I want to go back to somebody you mentioned earlier who I didn't get to follow up on. You mentioned the Malenkos, but you also mentioned Karl Gotch, and I'm really interested in learning what learning wrestling from Karl Gotch was like, because he's somebody who's one of those old.
Yeah, well, number one, I couldn't understand him really well,
Mhm.
and I'm young and I'm nervous. And I do remember one particular story. I mean, he would just talk about he's not into the psychology and stuff like that. He would talk about the holds and training and whatnot. But I'll never forget. I was in this. There was two rings in this building, so I was in the smaller ring. So I'm going to say it's a 15 or 16 foot. Then the big ring was 20 foot, and so Carl grabs my arm into a wrist lock, and I didn't sell it properly, and he made sure I did.
Oh
Now,
boy.
granted, I'm 20, and he just put on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe a 6. Maybe it's because I was young. I don't know what it was, but my arm was sore for a week, and I learned to sell better.
Very good. So Barry Horowitz is going to be at the New England Fan Fest. It's
Oh yeah.
Saturday, July 29th, Crown Plaza Hotel in Warwick, Rhode Island. Any messages for the fans who will be coming to
Oh
that?
my God. Number one, fans. First of all, I haven't been in that area probably since WCW, possibly WWF, that area. And I was booked on this show a couple of years ago. I am amped up because of COVID preempted it. And I mean, this Hall of Fame, the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, I'm honored, I'm humbled. Whoever inducted me, as far as Joe Bruin or anybody else, I'm thanking you right now, and I'll thank you again. I really appreciate it because July 29th. I mean, we're gonna have a fan fest from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then we're having the Hall of Fame Friday night at the Crown Plaza from 6 to 11, if I'm not mistaken. And uh there's gonna be I mean, you got Rhino there, you got Devon Dudley, my good buddy Haku. Oh my God, Rockin' Robin, she's a hoot. She's awesome and a talented wrestler. And I guess you can get the tickets at the door or immortalseats.com. It's going to be fun. I can't wait to see the fans here because they appreciate me and I appreciate them because I get to that area almost. So I hit New Jersey, Philly, see what I mean? And it almost Connecticut, and then it stops. And yeah, I've had memorable matches at Boston Gardens and it's in Warwick. It's Warwick, Rhode Island. Which, correct me if I'm wrong, Phil. Isn't that the home of the Warwick? The building was called uh, the Warwick Music something. I can't remember the actual name. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't. I'm sure Joe Bruin would probably know it a lot better than I would because I'm not
Oh
from that.
yeah.
I live in New York, so
Oh, okay. I'm
I'm a
sorry. I,
little I'm a
I
little
thought you were
outside.
from there.
I just
But
know Joe from
this
various wrestling things, for the most part.
this is the eighth fan fest, and yeah, I only named a few people. I don't know the whole list. I'm sure if you go to the website, they're going to tell you the list of the fan fest and who is inducted into the Hall of Fame. It's, and I know these fans have been waiting patiently. I mean, I think this was scheduled.
Yeah, it's been a
Excuse me.
while.
Maybe 2 years ago,
Yeah, I think
maybe
so.
three. Joe Bruin would know positively. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the Hall of Fame and seeing people that I haven't seen in a while, and the fans. And then of course the WrestleFest. We're gonna have pictures there. I'm gonna have merchandise. And the weather's gonna be perfect. I'm sure it's gonna be warm. Who cares? I'm from Florida. I'm loving it, And I mean that's a big fan fest if you think about it. From 9 in the morning till 5 at night. That's pretty big because I've did a lot of them. They're 10 or 11 or 12. They end up at 3 or 4. So, and I think it's going to do really well. I mean, these people are yearning for this show. They know about it. You're historians and probably been counting the days.
And I've always heard good things about that event from wrestlers and from
Oh, me
fans
too.
too.
Oh,
So,
yeah. I
it's a
was told.
solid
Yeah,
regular
I was.
event.
I heard from Mario Mancini, and I'm trying to think. I think it was Fred Ottman, Tugboat. I'm trying to think of different guys that have told me it's a class act, and the venue and everything about it. So I'm really amped up.
All right. Well, it has been a real pleasure for me to connect with you today, Barry. Thank you so much for joining me on Under the Ring Pro Wrestling Conversations.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I love the name Under the Ring. Like I said, I have been under the ring before. Uh,
Nice. And hopefully
for
we'll be under the ring again.
what's that?
Hopefully you'll be under the ring again if you come
Oh,
back with us
definitely.
sometime.
But yeah, I appreciate everything, and yeah, I can't wait to see the fans and my fans. If you don't mind, I just wanted to mention real quick that uh, the fans have been really good to me on Cameo.com. I mean, really good. ProWrestlingTees.com. I'm co-owner of GoodTimesGuaranteed.com wrestling auction. Just HighSpots.com, WrestlePro New Jersey. They've been treating me good. All these people that I mentioned, I shout out to them because they did me well. AEW and of course Impact. Um, I guess WWE doesn't like me anymore. I don't know. Uh, Nor do I care. A lot of people don't even know that they did a biography on me. It was filmed 2 years ago and not shown.
Hmm.
How about that one? Yeah, I guess I'm not a big enough star to get on A&E and talk about my life.
I still would like to see you back there. So
Oh, I mean, I love it. I love the company, the product. They've been great to me. So, I mean, I have, yeah. I mean, sure. I mean, the shirt, the trading cards, just everything. And yeah, I just wanted to give out a major shout out to those people and also my fans and people who have helped me in my career. I said this before, but I just found this out recently, Phil, that if you ever fans want to know a quick um, biography about me, like in about 3 minutes, you go to YouTube and listen to Steve Kern. And he hit the nail right on the head. I was listening to him talk, and I saw him at a convention 2 weeks ago in Florida, first time in 20 years. And if you listen to it, especially as a wrestler, he hits my whole career on the head within 3 minutes. And of course, Mario Mancini, and there's a host of other people that have given me props, and I appreciate it. I give them props. I have no problem with putting people over and so forth. It's not a problem. It's real, it's sincere, and it's business.
all right. Well, that's gonna do it. Thank you so much for joining me today.
This is for you, Phil.
Thank you.
You're getting the double paid per view pat on the back
Awesome.
because you're the man. And by the way, you could tell a guy from New York, Phil, but you can't tell him much.